HomeCareTeam.com.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And we're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If this is your first time tuning in to Health Futures, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. We've been on the air now for 6 years. We've brought to you almost 300 shows, maybe a little bit more. And what makes our show so special is the guests that I bring to the show. And today's no different. I have got two extraordinary docs here on the show with me today. The first one I want to introduce you to is the gentleman here to my right. It's Dr. Muwais. He is the Senior Medical Director for HomeCare Arizona. Welcome to the show, Dr. Muwais.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you here. And just over to my left, your right, is Dr. Kevin Haselhorst. Dr. Haselhorst, good to have you back on the show.
It's a pleasure to be back, Bob.
And we're going to spend the second segment really concentrating on some of the things that Dr. Haselhorst is working on. But I want to spend the first segment with you, Dr. Muwais. And I want to talk about something that's near and dear to all of us, and that is the fact that we want to protect our older adult population. And one of the things that is very preventable is falls. And on Monday, I believe it's Monday. Yeah, Monday is the first day of fall. And the entire month of September is a month that we take time to really talk about fall prevention. And it's Fall Prevention Awareness Month. And I've asked Dr. Muwais to be on here to talk a little bit about that. And so I wanted you to take a little moment to really talk about what you're seeing, what you're doing in your practice. HomeCare Arizona is an incredible organization that is really more of a community-minded organization, and the community centers that you have are fascinating. And I'm going to just turn the mic over to you and have you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Well, I mean, basically in the most general sense of things, I would think of HomeCare Arizona really as just a group of physicians dedicated to helping their patients or members live the healthiest lives possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a number of resources towards that goal. And one of the things, as you just mentioned, was the community centers. We have a number of those around town, and it's not irrelevant some of the activities that go on there in terms of our discussion about falls today.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had a number of guests from HomeCare Arizona. We talked a little bit about them before the show. Rich Chrislip and Ben Brock. I know Ben is I think he's responsible for the exercise portion of your community centers, and you guys are running classes. You're doing Tai Chi. You're doing brain memory classes.
Correct. We have a whole bunch of classes there, and Ben Brock, I believe, is responsible for all the activities at the community, running all the activities at the community centers. But we do have a number of programs, and specifically that would be, helpful in terms of preventing falls in the elderly. And you already touched upon a few of them. We have yoga, Tai Chi, other types of exercise programs, and all that activity and muscle strengthening is very important in terms of helping prevent falls.
So I want to give our audience some data, and data really drives certainly how we can modify our approach to prevention and hopefully more positive outcomes. But September is Fall Prevention Month. The CDC estimates that 1 in 4 residents over 65 reports falling each year. That's 25%. And I can tell you that 75% of the ER visits or urgent care visits from someone 65 and older is because of a fall. Over 30,000 people die or have died in the last year because of a fall. And there's so much we can do. And while Ben has created some of these exercises and these classes, and by the way, I think what's fascinating about HomeCare Arizona is that these community centers are free. All you have to be, and I thought you had to be 65. I think I think that Rich Chrysler said you can be 55 and get in.
Yes, I mean there's no age cutoff per se. No.
That's crazy, but that it's an incredible organization and really community minded and community focused, and the fact that we're talking about how you can prevent falls. The other part you can prevent falls is making sure the home is clear of clutter.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of fall prevention, we can. The easiest way to think about it is to, think about what are the common factors that are causing people to fall or associated with falls. And, there's many of them, but luckily they can be thought of in terms of several broad categories and kind of thought about in terms of those categories. And from there, from there, you can think about how you would try and prevent them by just kind of looking at the different factors. So, for example, you had mentioned earlier the exercise programs we have. So that's a common factor in terms of it's muscle deconditioning, really, essentially. So there's certain things that cause us to fall that are basically just things that are related to the aging process that we can address. So muscle weakness is a very common one, for example. So how do you address muscle weakness and deconditioning? I mean, as we age, we lose muscle mass and we get weaker. It's no surprise to anybody. But we can counter that by doing activities like Tai Chi, the yoga that we had talked about earlier. There's other factors changes that we see. Again, these are changes that we see just as we age that can contribute to us falling. So poor vision's an obvious one, so we rely on visual cues to maintain our balance. And when our vision gets poor, then, it's not surprising that we're at higher risk for falls. There's other mechanisms that we have in place as in terms of helping us know the position of our body parts in space, the position of our head in space. And, these sensory mechanisms aren't as sharp as we get older. So, if you can't really feel where your feet are, for example, you can imagine how that can lead to your fall. So that's, kind of one broad category, I think, in terms of looking at falls, just thinking about changes that we see as we age that can make us at higher risk for falling, and then seeing what can we do to address some of these things.
No, absolutely. And when you really talk about muscles and building muscles, one of the things that we've learned, and the great thing about us as a species, we keep learning every day, every week, every month, every year. We've learned that core conditioning is really important. We've learned that the bigger muscles that we have, like the glutes and the hamstrings, I mean, those are the things that help us stand up erect and that helps us move. And we need to make sure that we're not atrophying in those areas. So certainly all the stuff that HomeCare Arizona is doing in their community centers, but I think what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Muwais, is that we need to be practicing even these at home. I mean, just when you're at home, or even when you go to your house of worship, don't pull in the pew in front of you to stand up. Try to stand up using your core and engaging your abs and your glutes and try to pull yourself up, because that's what centers us and that's what prevents us from falling. One of the things I want to pivot over and talk about some of the other things that can lead to falls is certainly we talked about the home and I talked about clutter, but bathrooms.
Absolutely. I mean, most falls actually do tend to occur in the bathroom, and, you can imagine a very common circumstance, an elderly person getting up in the night to go to the bathroom, the floor might be wet or whatever, their vision is poor, the lighting is dim, and, most falls tend to actually occur in the bathroom. But the home environment is very important in terms of when we're looking at preventable factors for falls. So, one of the things is making sure that all walkways or walk areas are well lit and clear. That's a very simple measure.
Sure.
making sure that there's no loose rugs or area rugs, that people can slip on. Just very simple measures, and there's actual home assessments where we can have occupational therapists come out and look at a person's home and make recommendations on how to make the home safer. But definitely, on a very basic level, the environment you live in and you're moving around in is very relevant to how likely it is going to be for you to fall. So,
I liked how you talked about occupational therapists, and certainly, whether it be a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, and even my company at Cypress HomeCare, we do safety evaluations of the home. I mean, we put in a client service coordinator who's trained in this area to make sure that the home is safe, the environment's safe. And, you talk about clutter. The other thing is these tables that have sharp points on the end. I mean, you take one fall and you catch that on the corner of your noggin, it's lights out, and it could be all over.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, you want to look at also the environment that you're living in terms of the potential ramifications if you did have a fall, and how it could contribute to an injury from the fall.
And the other thing is, when you really look at it statistically, and we capture data. I mean, our world is based on analytics, and we've come a long way in medicine because we're doing a lot of predictive analytics. But, the interesting thing is that people 85 and older, if they fall, the numbers, the analytics tell us that you have a 50% chance of mortality within the next 12 months. 50% chance of dying, and we have to avoid that. We're going to talk more about falls when we come back. You've been listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I got Dr. Muwais in the studio. I got Dr. Haselhorst. We're talking fall prevention. One segment down. We got 3 more to go. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
This Wednesday is the return from summer break. The JoeLoans.com show on Money Radio at 1:30. With the rate cut by the Fed and the turmoil in the markets, how does that affect your plans for a new home loan or a refinancing of an existing home mortgage? Joe Capitano, Senior Vice President with Homeowners Financial Group, will help give clarity to these questions and more. Tune in to Money Radio this Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. for the JoeLoans.com show with Joe Capitano.
You love Money Radio? Here's your chance to be a part of it. If you consider yourself a motivated professional looking for a new challenge and want to be part of something that goes against the grain, this opportunity is for you. Money Radio 1510, a locally owned and family-operated station for over 30 years, whose desire is to make relationships with our thriving community, has rare openings for advertising specialists. Be a part of the movement that will educate our community about financial security and money-related matters. Email your resume now to jobs@moneyradio.com.
At Farmers Insurance, the more you know, the better you can plan for what's ahead. Get smarter about your insurance at farmers.com. That's farmers.com.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, I got Dr. Muwais from the OptumCare Arizona Group, and I've got Dr. Kevin Haselhorst here in the studio as well. He's a repeat performer, a repeat guest. Good to have you both here. We're talking fall prevention. It's Fall Prevention Month. We're talking about how do we protect our loved ones? How do we make that happen? Some of the contributing factors for unexpected falls are hearing loss, inner ear problems, certainly, vertigo if you're having inner ear issues, previous head injuries, and certain chronic conditions like Parkinson's, and certainly living here in Arizona, the effects of humidity and heat. These are definitely factors. And if you missed our first segment, Dr. Muwais and I were talking about bathrooms. And the idea of, first of all, soap, water, and skin, and towels, and ceramic. That's a recipe for disaster, is it not?
Correct.
It really
it's like
is.
bread and butter.
It is. It is like bread and butter. But, there's so much that can happen in the bathroom, and that's where a lot of those falls do happen. The other thing that happens, and Dr. Muwais, I want you to talk a little bit about it, is that we know that some of our older adults that are 80 or older that are more likely to fall, they have difficulty with their bladder, so they're going to the bathroom. They have impaired vision and hearing, as I mentioned earlier, and they're taking more than 10 medications. 10 medications, so much of it is surrounding medicine.
Correct. I mean, a very, very, very good point you're raising. I mean, medications have a huge role to play in terms of falling in the elderly population, and it's an area that, is very amenable to trying to intervene. It's common as we get older to be on multiple medications, as you said, and there's certain groups of medications that tend to be especially problematic. So, as you can imagine, medications that might affect how alert you are would be a big problem. So, narcotics, painkillers, very relevant discussion today, but that's an obvious class of medications that can contribute to elderly people falling. The other classes of sedating medications, this is a little technical, but the medications called the benzodiazepines, these are medications very commonly prescribed in the elderly population. Common medications from that class would be Ativan, Valium. These are the types of medicines that I'm referring to. And again, these medications can affect how alert we are, and it's not hard to, extrapolate from there how if you're not alert, it can lead to you falling. So often these medicines are used in combinations as well, which, adds an additive effect. And then, again, there's many medicines that we could talk about, but, from my perspective, probably the most problematic are the medications that can affect your level of alertness.
Absolutely. And then you throw into the fact that older adults don't metabolize alcohol very well. And you have many, and we've done segments on the show where we've talked about how alcohol abuse is running rampant in the senior world. So you combine those medications and you introduce alcohol, then you've really got a recipe for disaster.
A very good point. And alcohol, the use of alcohol in the elderly population is something that's probably very underestimated. So, on top of, you're using medications that have, like painkillers or sleeping aids, medicines for anxiety. A lot of these medications can have these kind of sedative side effects. And on top of that, you throw in alcohol use, which alcohol is also a sedative, and you're setting yourself up for a high risk for a fall.
Absolutely. So, another thing that, we talked before we came back on the second segment, we talked about family members. Not everybody has the ability to get out to see their doctor or bring an occupational therapist in or a physical therapist or even engage an agency like mine. What can some family members do to help?
Well, as family members, I think we have to act as advocates for our loved ones. And I think, on the very most basic level is, first of all, recognizing the problem. So, on the most general sense, a lot of falls go unreported. So people might be having falls and it might not even be recognized by their loved ones, and it might not even be something that they're reporting to their physicians. So, on the very most basic level, I think the first part of this, the answer to this question is, recognizing, is my parent falling and I'm not even aware of it? That's a very distinct possibility.
Certainly watching their gait is one thing. Two, looking to see if they have any bruises. And, certainly ones that have heart challenges, they're taking those anticoagulants. So when they get a bruise, it's very noticeable. So those are kind of signs. One of the things that we look for, and, we get into the home a lot. We notice some of our clients that are definitely fall risk, they they furniture surf. You know what I'm talking about, furniture surfing?
Yes.
They'll grab on to...
They're ninja warriors.
They're
right?
ninja warriors, and they're going from chair to sofa, but, they know that there are fall risks. But the biggest challenge is give them a walker. I'm not going to, it's that modesty. They don't want to use a walker, but what's the alternative? The alternative is if you're 85 or older, you're going to die. You have a 50% chance of dying. So, I think sometimes you have to throw the modesty out and do what's right, just to use these assistive devices to stay upright and avoid the falls.
I think as caregivers or family caregivers, you're all about protecting them, and they're worried about their safety and their security. So that walker, that cane, that glider, whatever they're using, that mobile wheelchair, whatever they call it.
Right.
Allow them, don't make a big deal around it, but just have it available for them, because that's part of the whole thing. They're going to do it when they want to, when they feel like, but they'll get used to it and they'll become a part of their life kind of thing. But make it available and not hold a whole lot of, call a lot of attention to it. Just make sure that they understand that that's something that you want them to have, that you worry about them.
And as far as assistive devices, we talk about the bathroom being dangerous. So we need to make sure that those bathrooms are as safe as possible. So, some people still have the tub showers. So, I know that they make devices, but, sometimes, you need to, contact someone to rip that out and do a home mod and put a shower in. But the other thing is shower chairs, grab bars in the shower and in the bathroom. All are really, really important. It's hard to believe we're down now our second segment. And Dr. Muwais, we're going to say goodbye to you. But real quickly, OptumCare Arizona, how do we connect with you guys if we need to connect with you? I know you got a great website, OptumCare AZ, or it's OptumCare.com. OptumCare.com. Great having you on the air with me, Dr. Muwais. We're talking about a very important subject, fall prevention. And prevention is certainly, what do they say? It's an ounce of cure. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. So, we can prevent falls. We, as adult children, need to be mindful of that. We're going to say goodbye to Dr. Muwais from OptumCare Arizona. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you very much again for having me.
And thank you, as our listeners, for tuning in for our first half. Our second half will be with Dr. Kevin Haselhorst. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Working, living pain-free. These are a few of the things many of us take for granted. Yet, for many United States military veterans, finding and affording oral health care is a challenge many of us don't think about. Dental Lifeline Network is looking for dentists who can change this. DLN is asking dentists and their teams to volunteer to see one veteran with special needs one time per year. Visit willyouseeonevet.org to learn more. That's willyouseeonevet.org.
We all want more time with our dads, brothers, partners, friends, and our sons. Time for more conversations, more catch-ups, more of what life's all about. Now is our time to make it happen. Together, we can stop men dying too young by tackling the big issues: prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health, suicide. It's time to act. Sign up or donate at Movember.com to help change the face of men's health.
As we reach the bottom of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 AM and 105.3 FM.
Acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan has detailed the ongoing threats from terrorism, focusing on domestic terror threats, especially white supremacy. McAleenan called white supremacist extremism one of the most potent ideologies driving acts of violence in the U.S. President Trump says it is possible there won't be a new trade deal with China before the 2020 elections. He was asked about the state of talks to end the trade war.
My relationship with President Xi is a very amazing one, very good one, but we have right now a little spat, but I think we're doing very well.
The nation's largest retailer will stop the sale of e-cigarettes. Walmart made the announcement today, saying it is making the decision after reports of deaths and illness linked to vaping.
Don't let our people die.
Young protesters around the world, including these in India, trying to raise world awareness on the need to do more to manage climate change. I'm Mike Moss.
Who says being cheap is a good thing? We do. CheapoAir.com. There's nothing wrong with saving money, with being smart, with being cheap. Download, click, or call to save on flights, hotels, car rentals, and more. Go ahead. Be smart. Be cheap. CheapoAir.com. Go online or call 866-GO-CHEAP. 866-GO-CHEAP.
CheapoAir.com.
Go ahead. Be cheap.
Family is big around here. We're family-owned, family-operated, family-managed. And that means legacy. That means dependability. That means using Grainger. With over 1.5 million products and knowledgeable product experts, Grainger has whatever we need. And with same-day pickup and next-day delivery options, they have it whenever we need it. For over 90 years, businesses like ours have trusted Grainger. Because, like family, Grainger's got our back. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by to see for yourself. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you're still working, you're still making money. But what about retirement? Make sure you have reliable income then, too. Keep listening to your Money Radio experts to find out how.
I've been around a long time, seeing a lot of gadgets show up that are supposed to make my job easier. Digital screwdrivers, Hammer 2.0, the new improved nail, now with more pointiness. You know what really makes my job easier? Grainger. Easy reordering, easy inventory solutions, and easy to do business with every time. Gadgets come and go. You want reliability. You want Grainger. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by to see for yourself. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Are you sick and tired of hearing, don't buy an annuity until you've spoken to the so-called experts? If so, call 800-957-5604, extension 200, to learn the concept of a principal-protected, low-cost, new generation annuity and the various options. Listen to Secured Financial Solutions every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. on this station to prevent a derailed retirement and from purchasing the wrong annuity, especially the high-risk, high-fee variable annuity and complex proprietary index annuities. Secured Financial Solutions will help you understand the difference between true stated guarantees and non-guaranteed returns. Call 800-957-5604, extension 200, and visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, and Registered Investment Advisor. VCM and Secured Financial Solutions, LLC are independent of each other. Annuities are insurance products, backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insuring insurance company. Information provided is not intended as tax or legal advice and should not be relied on as such. You are encouraged to seek tax or legal advice from an independent professional.
You love Money Radio? Here's your chance to be a part of it. If you consider yourself a motivated professional looking for a new challenge and want to be part of something that goes against the grain, this opportunity is for you. Money Radio 1510, a locally owned and family-operated station for over 30 years, whose desire is to make relationships with our thriving community, has rare openings for advertising specialists. Be a part of the movement that will educate our community about financial security and money-related matters. Email your resume now to jobs@moneyradio.com. If you're selling your home and want thousands of ready home buyers to view it, put your home on OurNiceHomes.com. That's OurNiceHomes.com. Or call 480-776-5231.
I'm Jim Chesko with Your Money Now. U.S. stocks remain modestly lower in the session's final hour. The Dow Industrial's down 81 points. The Nasdaq Composite has dropped 49. The S&P 500 down just 7. With 3 medicines for high blood pressure and another one to lower cholesterol, what if you could take just one pill? A new all-in-one medication may let you do just that. A new study says the polypill worked out just as well to prevent and treat elevated blood pressure and high cholesterol. The experimental pill could be a game-changer for lower-income patients. A trio of new films will vie for moviegoers' attention this weekend, with each of the 3 projected to open in the $20 million range across North America. New at the multiplex, Downton Abbey, the movie continuation of the hit TV series centering on the Crawley family, Brad Pitt's space drama Ad Astra, and, yes, Sylvester Stallone's action thriller Rambo: Last Blood. Holdovers, It Chapter 2, and Hustlers may also grab another $20 million or so. That's Your Money Now.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a Select Quote agent with a true story that could save you hundreds of dollars a year. A woman named Linda just called. Her husband, Ray, has a $300,000 group life insurance policy, but is changing jobs and can't take it with him. Well, I shopped the many highly rated term life insurance companies we represent, like Prudential and Mutual of Omaha, and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $27 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-507-2266. That's 800-507-2266. 800-507-2266. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress HomeCare Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're in our second half here. We're coming at you live from the Scasta Air Park Studios. Here it is, September 20th. On Friday, and we are talking about fall prevention. And I had Dr. Muwais in the studio. He's the Senior Medical Director from HomeCare, Arizona. And I also have Dr. Kevin Haselhorst here in the studio. And I want to really give a quick promo shout-out to an event that is happening on a week from today from 12 to 4. So it's September 27th. It's called the Annual Stand Up and Falls Symposium. And the keynote speaker is Senator Heather Carter. She's been here on the show before. And if you want to learn more about it, you need to go to 2019, and it's AFPCSYMP.eventbrite.com. I know it's a lot there, but I think if you put it in there, you'll find it. It is at the First Christian Church. It's 6750 North 7th Avenue. And again, it is Friday the 27th, 12 to 4, and it's the annual stand-up for Falls Symposium. So, Dr. Kevin Haselhorst, repeat guest here on the show. You are an ER doctor at Arrowhead.
Correct.
And you get to see some of the things that we talked about in terms of falls. So give me a perspective on what you see in the emergency department.
Well, I'll just make one comment. That I see a lot of people who trip over curbs. This is just something that happens very you can't anticipate, and just like you can't anticipate your next emergency room visit. And I want to build upon the last conversation in terms of people wanting to prevent themselves from falling, but then also I feel compelled to talk about people protecting themselves once they come to the emergency room, or particularly when you're in a care facility that requires you to go to the emergency room after you fall. Now, I know that there are procedures and policies and regulations, and we all have to abide by these things, and that's kind of what we sign on to. But I also believe that as you get older, you have to declare yourself the exception to the rule. And at some point, when you feel like you've fallen and you're okay, you might want to be given permission to be allowed to be treated with the understanding that I know myself and I don't feel like I have to oblige other people's policies or commitments to me. And I'm on the receiving end of these people who are frustrated and pissed off that they are brought there against their will. And I feel for them because I would be the same person.
Right.
So what if I fell? I got up and I'm fine. I don't want to be here. So from my perspective, I can minimize it because I have a patient who's very conscious and has a very self-determined mannerism, and I want to give them full permission to do as they please. But at the same time, I'm still liable for them, and I could potentially put myself at risk for something bad happening in just like people in the car accidents.
Right.
They show up. I don't know if I feel fine now, but I'm not sure how I'm going to feel in the next couple of days. I just want to be checked out. And so there's a little bit of cautionary, better be sorry, it's better to be safe than sorry kind of philosophy. But I think once you sort of believe that if you if you can trust, if you have that philosophy that says, you know, I don't think the sky is falling when something bad happens or something unexpected happens, kind of thing. I want to trust people's intuition, and I use that a lot as a reference point for my own judgment as to how much I'm going to do. If they feel like they're good, I want to give them that reassurance that I think you're good too. And, you know, if I see evidence otherwise, I will act upon it at that point. But I think the idea of this, where do you give people permission to not have to abide by the rules? And I think that comes under the heading of type of a palliative care approach, where less is more. We're not worried about preventing everything from occurring. We're just trying to establish, you know, give you a sense of well-being or permission to respect what you feel you need versus me having to tell you what you need, kind of thing.
No, I get that. You know, one of the things that I think we're learning more and more about falls, and certainly medicine, is, you know, we're learning a lot about concussions. And, you know, a lot of falls do end up with people taking a really, really hard knock on the noggin. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we know about a lot of the famous people that had similar situations, and then all of a sudden, you know, the brain, you know, expands, and, you know, they end up, you know, having major complications and sometimes death.
Right.
And, you know, when you get somebody that comes in and you're uncertain whether or not they took a shot to the head, I mean, you know, obviously you take every precautionary standard, whether it be CT scan, MRIs, and stuff like that, just to make sure that there isn't any bleeds going on.
But let's say they're over 85, and you do find that bleed in their brain. Is it going to change their how well are they going to recover from that hemorrhagic stroke in some respects that they've sustained? There are many people, and I know I have a good friend whose father, when he was 95, fell and had a subdural, and they drained his brain. His quality of life after that was nothing like he had before.
Right.
Did we do him any favors at that point? And so that's what I'm sort of leading people into believing, that what are we going to do when we find something bad on the CAT scan? Should we have just left well enough alone and not even looked for the bleed? Because as soon as you find the bleed, there's always the feeling of having to do something more. If you accept the fact that people, particularly when people fall and break their hip, a lot of times that is a death sentence for many older people. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to talk about it in that context. But that is particularly if you have dementia and other things that are compromising your ability to kind of get up and walk again. You are essentially on bed rest after you fall. And what's the difference between having a hip replacement versus just simply treating your pain in a bedridden sort of state?
You know, it's interesting. You and I, when you were last on, I think we were talking more about advanced directives and making your wishes known. And this is a great opportunity when you show up in an ER. And if you had a fall, you know, to have those directions with you and your loved ones to know that what your wishes were or are.
I think this is a good point that I've coming to realization is each time you go to the emergency room, your quality of life diminishes. And so from that context, you have to really be guarded against going to the emergency room, because chances are there's obviously some reason you're there. Life is unmanageable, or some other situations take a turn for the worse. And many people get in this merry-go-round or the vicious cycle where you go from the emergency room, admitted to the hospital, to the rehab center, back to the emergency room, back to the hospital, back to the rehab center. You never really get a break from and of course we're all talking about quality of life, but are we actually, how do we measure that in the scheme of that confusion around trying to do more instead of allowing people to sort of cut their losses in some respects, count their blessings, and return home without the feeling compelled to have to do more.
And I think that's something people don't really truly understand. And I know you're on this mission. And in our last segment here, I want to talk more about palliative, because that's something that we're all learning more about. And there's so much yet more to learn. So, you know, I want to just finish up our third segment and just say, you know, you see so much in that ED department, and you have learned so much about people and families and the dynamics.
And behavior. and what people feel they're supposed to do versus in their heart of hearts how they would choose if there wasn't other people obliging them to doing more.
Right. And I also think, and we'll talk more maybe about it in the last segment, when someone's memorialized their wishes, doesn't necessarily mean the families always follow those. And so many of them are praying for a miracle.
They're not ready.
They're not.
I totally get that. They are their loved ones, and they will do everything to keep them alive. And I understand that, but that's coming from a fear instead of love.
Right.
And I want people to kind of engage letting go as the major part of love.
We're down 3 segments. We got one more to go. Dr. Kevin Haselhorst is in the house. We're talking palliative in our last segment. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Imagine a secure IRA rollover with a 10% income bonus and a 7% income benefit growth rate, contractually guaranteed. Your principal is protected against loss 24/7, 365, yet you're able to share in upward gains of a select market index without a cap. You go up with your money, never down, forward, never back. The insurance company does not keep your money when you die. The market is getting more volatile. Now is the perfect time to make your move to safety, preservation, income, and upside potential without the risk of loss. Let's build a retirement plan for you and your spouse that won't blow down in the next storm using the highest quality assets. It's time to get paid to own your investments and protect what matters.
Call leading annuity authority Steve Jurich now, 480-902-3333. Guarantees rely on the claims paying ability of the insurer, so compare with Steve, 480-902-3333. Call Steve now.
Did you know that people with paid-off mortgages don't care about rising interest rates? Hi, Joe Capitano here, Senior Vice President with Homeowners Financial Group. Don't envy them, be one of them. There are a lot of you out there who could possibly pay off your mortgage in 5 years or less and have full access to your equity 24 hours a day and not change any of your spending habits. So if you have 20% equity or could get there fast, you have to call me. Mortgage interest deductions are not what they used to be. So I have a mortgage. I have a plan to share with you. Retire free and clear. Call me today, Joe Capitano, 480-305-8545, 480-305-8545, or go to joeloans.com. Banker number 0906222, NMLS number 98826. I'm an equal housing lender. That's Joe Capitano, 480-305-8545, or just joeloans.com.
At Farmers Insurance, the more you know, the better you can plan for what's ahead. Get smarter about your insurance at farmers.com. That's farmers.com.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures. We're in our 4th segment. We're coming at you live from the Money Park radio studios here in the Scottsdale Air Park. I said Money Park. I meant to say Money Radio. It must be Friday here. So Money Radio. And it's Cowbell Friday. We got a little lover boy taking us into the final segment. If you're just tuning in, I got Kevin Haselhorst, Dr. Haselhorst in the studio. He is a emergency room doctor with Arrowhead Hospital, and he's also the author of this book here that we talked a little bit about the last time you were here. Is palliative care right for you? You can order this off of Amazon. It is a really incredible book, really talking about it. The one I really like, this one page that I pointed out to him before we started this segment, the 2 sides of your thinking, the left brain medical care, the right brain medical care, and really talks the difference between...
Palliative care.
Yes, palliative care. Really talks about the different options that are available. So I want to jump right into it, talk about palliative care. And we're talking about older adults that show up in the ED.
I'm just going to give you a quick metaphor that describes palliative care, I think, because it is very confusing to people. But if you pictured, I always use the topic of Jimmy Carter when he was fighting malignant melanoma. And so there was this 90-year-old gentleman who had this decision whether he would essentially go into the lion's den to fight malignant melanoma, or he would not go into the lion's den, and he would stay on the outside. Palliative care represents the person who wants to stay outside of the lion's den, but will still be cared for and treated with the dignity that's owed any human being. You know, there's a sense of if you're giving up or if you're signing out against medical advice that we don't care about you and you can go rot in hell kind of thing. But that's not palliative care at all. This is kind of like we honor this choice for you to feel less is more, and that I just really want to enjoy the remainder of my days without having to feel compelled to treat this disease process. So you had the free choice to go either Jimmy Carter's direction, where he actually went into the lion's den and actually got a win. But the odds were against him going into that lion's den, and if the truth be known, he's got a higher power looking over him, and that serves him on that level.
Sure.
But I also want to know that there's a higher power on the other side of him that would have helped him just the same in many respects, because for him, he still had something to prove. He still had this need to say that he wasn't a wimp. He was willing to take on anything. But for the average person who doesn't have that need to prove anything, palliative care is a great resource for them. To be treated in your home environment, I could distinguish palliative care as more of a home care environment, whereas hospital care is more the medical care type of thing, because you're still open to the idea that I want to be in the hospital. There are many people that at some point come to the terms with the idea, I don't ever want to go back to the hospital again. They don't really on board with the traditional medical care. They're more in line with palliative care, and they should have all the resources to manage their care as best they can at home, which is part of what you do in your service to people through Cypress.
No, I absolutely. And when I think of palliative care, I think of comfort. I think of somebody being able to go home, be in their home environment, and be as comfortable as possible. Because the other option, if you're going to the lion's den, like you described Jimmy Carter, you're getting tubes put in you, you're getting lines put in you, you're getting people probing and poking and doing everything to you.
Many of those people don't want it done. That's the sad thing. Jimmy made that choice. Most people who are caught up in that cycle are receiving dialysis or they're receiving chemotherapy because no one really told them that was a viable option not to receive this care.
Right.
They kind of know it, but they also see it as giving up. So when we're talking about surviving, we're not necessarily talking about giving up. We're just talking about approaching life from a more reasonable standpoint of what's important to you versus what you're obliged to. I would defer on using the word comfort care. I really think it's compassionate care.
Oh, right.
That compassion allows people choice.
Right.
And so the door is always open to going to the lion's den. I'm never going to take that away from people. But I want to make sure that it's an acceptable choice not to seek medical care, not to use 911 as your first outlet to, when a chronic illness becomes serious, we can still manage it at home. When a serious illness becomes life-threatening, well, then we're talking hospice or end-of-life care. But we do have the means to manage this in the home environment. Unfortunately, some of the labels get very challenging for people who aren't quite ready to hear those words or to receive those services. And I think we need to do a better job in terms of making these a more acceptable approach for people to receive that type of care without feeling like they're treating themselves as less than or giving up, or they're not trying hard enough, whatever.
So one of my questions to you as a doc in the emergency department, you get people coming in all the time, and you are looked upon as being somewhat the expert. How often do you have patients say to you, so Dr. Haselhorst, what do I do? What do you recommend? Look to you and say, do you have that happen?
90% of the time.
90% of the time.
Pretty much they say, you tell me you're the doctor. What do you want to do? You tell me you're the doctor. So it does fall on my shoulders to, and then of course, if I'm the doctor, I'm going to tell them, well, I'm going to be very aggressive with your treatment, because that's what doctors do. We save lives.
Right.
That's what I, as a doctor. Now, when I put on my minister hat or I put on my, cavalier hat, I tend to give people more the other side of the conversation and make sure, you don't have to do anything your doctor tells you to do. You have, after 85, I always say there's no rules at this point. Mm-hmm. You have the free choice to listen to the options, and then you decide whether it's important for you to pursue more treatment or defer on that. And I would say this idea of adding insult to injury. When patients fall and hurt themselves, yeah, they got injured, but the insult is when they come to the emergency room. When your illness becomes serious, the insult is when you go to the emergency room. Each time you get insulted, it becomes a lesser quality of life. There are studies that say that 6 months beyond an emergency room visit, elderly people are still traumatized by that experience. And we don't think anything of it because we see it as sort of a nothing kind of thing. But for them, it's concerning because it creates their vulnerability, especially if you're repeat visits to the emergency room. You don't have any control over your life. Life is unmanageable, and you do need this higher power of palliative care that helps you resolve some of these internal frustrations or stress.
Well, I will tell you, one of the things I've really learned here today, and I'm always learning from you, Kevin, is that you have lesser quality of life the more frequency you go into the ER. And that is, it's a fact. I mean, if you have to go in, you're coming out with less quality.
You know what adds quality of life? Relaxation and rest. Recreation and rest. So you get out and you exercise and you do things socially and you get involved and enjoy your life and you rest at night and you forget about the rest of the things. That's what's going to enhance your quality of life, not the emergency room.
And both are so important, and both I need to do a better job of. So we got maybe 30 seconds left. Kevin, it flies. So I want you to leave a lasting comment, message for our listeners relative to a lot of the things that we've talked about.
I do want to add that insult to injury phenomenon, that as a caregiver, are you really insulting your loved ones by asking them to do more? Again, adding insult to injury, adding insult to illness, adding insult to dying. Let's stop adding the insult to people experiencing very natural life transitions or experiences in life and making sure that we're doing things that make sense, not just to do that things.
Dr. Kevin Haselhorst, thank you for being on the show. Fall Prevention Month. Keep our elders upright. Make it a great day.
No place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress HomeCare Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit CypressHomeCare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.
I'm Ference Toth, President and founder of Secure State Management and Chairman of the Board of a community bank in formation. When was the last time you heard a fresh approach to your money? Have you heard everything? Probably not. Let me introduce you to Your Personal Bank. What is Your Personal Bank? Contact me at 866-515-6280, 866-515-6280, or mypersonalbank.com. Tune in every Tuesday at noon for My Personal Bank radio show on Money Radio.
Money Radio 1510
and 105.3 FM.
KFNN Mesa, Phoenix, and K287BX Mesa. This is where the Money Masters hang out every day, so sit in on our next masterclass right here on Money Radio. Take a look at the market. Dow down 156 points at 26,938. S&P down 14 at 29.92, and NASDAQ down 65 at 81.17.
Want to talk about money? This is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin